So we're currently broadcasting, so people can see us.
Okay.
Hi, people.
Just waiting on Facebook to pick it up. There it is.
We got chat already. How fun.
Okay.
As you're streaming live on Facebook now.
Excellent. Alrighty. And it looks like maybe, I'm going to guess Maeve over at Daou may have used the panelist link and not the audience link to join us. Maeve, if you can hear me, you might want to switch links there because we've got you up on the screen. It's a great picture of you. Love to have you join us. I think we got a lot of people joining in.
Bring them in.
Yeah.
I wish everyone had all the wines in front of them that we have.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
All righty. Boom. Very good. All right, we'll just give it a second here as we start to have more and more people join us. And then I'll do the introductions and we'll roll. So hope everyone's good though. Cool.
Roll.
Chris, are you going to give a little background about what this, how
I am.
about international? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I am. So, okay, we're good. Just watching the time there. All righty, let's roll. So welcome everyone to another Paso Robles Wine Country Zoom Hangout. I'm Chris Toronto with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. We are that organization, that trade organization that represents the Paso Robles wine region. Today is an interesting kind of almost special show, or it is a special show in that we are taking part in what's called the Wine-A-Thon, the Wine Origins Alliance. Which is an organization that has about 31 different regions from around the world as signers of the Declaration to Protect Wine Place Names. So they help all of our organizations, everyone from Champagne to Bordeaux to Napa to us and many other regions to help protect our brands, our names, because you can only get wine that is Paso Robles wine, of course, from Paso. You can only get Bordeaux from Bordeaux. You can only get Champagne from Champagne. And so it's this organization that has organized this Taste-A-Thon today, where 16 wine regions from 8 different countries have been putting on these tastings today. I caught a little bit of the Rioja one earlier today, and that was pretty neat. I tried to listen in on one from Italy as well, and just, you know, busy day. So, but we are really happy to be a part of this. Today we have a special show in that we have a few brands that have some international appeal and some iconic names from our region. And I'd like to just take one moment real quick to go ahead and introduce who we have today and give them an opportunity to say a little bit about themselves and their brand. I'd love to start with Neil Collins from Tablas Vineyard. Neil.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us for this. This is pretty exciting for me. The Taste-A-Thon, first time I've done this on an international level. So cool, thanks for being here. I'm Neil Collins, executive winemaker and vineyard manager at Tablas Creek. Tablas Creek, the project partnership between the Haas family. Robert Haas was the founder, and the Parens of Chateau de Beaucastel in the Châteauneuf region of southern France. Purchased property in Paso Robles, and to keep it brief, purchased property here, particularly in the Adelaide west side of Paso Robles, based entirely upon soil, climate, rainfall, terroir, I guess you would say, to use the French term. They could have bought anywhere in the Western United States, which is where they were looking. At the time, which is the late 80s, they chose Paso Robles, which was kind of an odd choice because there was not an immense amount going on here at that point. But they knew their subject, they knew the soil, they knew the topography, they knew what they wanted. So they came here, they bought land, and we've continued since that time. And I've been involved since the beginning of the project here, and spent a fair amount of time in France also with the Pren family. And we've continued to try and produce wines as best we can that are reflections and celebrations of the terroir of West Paso Robles in our little area. And it's so diverse. I mean, we're, Daniel thrown at me and hit me probably from his mountain, but very different regions, very different soils, I think, with different elevations and exposures. So the diversity of Paso is what's super cool, and of course the history. So I'm super excited to be here and share two of our very best and very top wines with everybody tonight, and probably even more excited to taste the other two's great wines, because I don't get to do that every day.
Yeah, right on. Thank you very much, Neil. And we're going to be going into a quick PowerPoint actually after we go through our introductions, because for some of our international audience, I'd love for them to get better acquainted with Paso and just to, where we are in the world. But we'll get to that after Daniel introduces himself. Next, I'm going to ask Janell Dusi to introduce herself. J. Dusi Wines.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the invitation, Chris. And happy to represent Paso Robles. And I think I'm coming at you guys with a little representation of Zinfandel. So it is kind of one of our heritage grapes here in Paso Robles because it was one of the first varietals planted here. And I actually come from 4 generations of vineyard farmers. So my great-grandfather came over from Italy in early 1920s and planted 140 acres by the 40s of Zinfandel. And luckily they're all still intact today, but I have 4 generations of farmers in front of me. And I was the first one to be like, guys, let's do something else. We love selling these grapes to all these great wineries, but let's make our own wine. So we now have a family name on a bottle. So I'm the owner winemaker here at JDC Wines, specializing in Zinfandel because that's what we have such great old vines of that are fun and full of fruit. We'll get to later, but I'm happy to be carrying on the family tradition. I just call it with a little bit of a new perspective.
Right on. Thank you very much, Janell. Oh, maybe
I'll sell most of our grapes to other wineries. So you'll see the Dusi name on other bottles. What? Oh.
You froze for a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, yeah. So you see the Dusi names. We sell 80% of our grapes we farm, we still sell. And I take about 25% of my family's vineyards and put them into the J. Dusi Wines. So we're here in Paso Robles sharing our wine with visitors every day. We're happy to be doing it again, finally.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Looks like we're a little glitchy today, so hopefully everybody can hang through that. I'm not sure what's happening with our connection with Zoom and then into Facebook, but we have a cool show ahead of us, so please hang on. All right, Daniel Daou, Senor, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for including us in this wonderful event. As you know, my brother and I grew up in France, and that's where we developed our deep passion for wine. Immigrated here to the United States when we were 18 years old to go to college, and then pursued our dream and our vision to produce world-class Cabernet Sauvignon and Bordeaux varieties in the isolated district of Paso Robles, where we feel that these varieties really excel. The winery was founded about 13 years ago. We're family-owned, family-operated, and I have 5 children, 4 of which are either involved in the business or becoming winemakers, or getting their, like my daughter getting her master's in Bordeaux in oenology to join the family as well. So we love what we do. It's a labor of love for us. We have believed from day one that Paso Robles has the potential to rival any other region in the world when it comes to Bordeaux varieties. And we have worked diligently in the last 13 years to accomplish that. So we're glad to be here.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So everyone, I promised you a quick little overview of Paso. So for many of you that are joining us that are completely new to our wine region, let's do a quick overview on who we are and where we are in the world. Second here as I share my screen. So we are the Paso Robles Viticultural Area, American Viticultural Area. Let's see where we are here. So there's planet Earth. And let's zoom in a little bit into California, which is where we are, along the central coast of California. And we're in a little county called San Luis Obispo, which is this right here. And as we zoom a little bit further, you can see Pacific Ocean mountain range, and then the Paso Robles AVA and another mountain range. So we're going to do a quick tour here just to familiarize everybody with a little bit of the topography that we have in Paso. So we're going to get right kind of in the middle of our AVA here as we start looking at what we call the Templeton Gap District. And so we have 11 different AVAs in the Paso Robles region. They were recently formed actually in 2014. We go north and we have here the Willow Creek District with some of these conically shaped hills. You'll notice how white the soil is, and that's not just because of the gradient that the computer can allow. It literally is the fact that we have a lot of white soils that we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. Here's Tablas Creek and the valley that Tablas is in. And as we go up and over to look back to the north, you can see how mountainous portions of our region gets. Going into town, to give you a perspective, this is our little town of Paso Robles. About 30,000 people live in our town. Of course, it's a large area, with the Paso Robles area in general being about 614,000 acres, but with about 41,000 under vine. And it sounds like we're glitching a little and stopping and kind of going. So my apologies to everybody, but I think it's something out of our control. It looks like maybe something's happening with Zoom and that Facebook interface, so I apologize. Down to the south of our region, though, is the Santa Margarita district, and that butts up against this mountain range that we have between us and the Pacific Ocean. And that's a very important thing to point out, in that it is that mountain range that you can see all along here that helps not only keep us protected from the influence of the Pacific Ocean, but also allows us to cool off, and we can talk a little bit about that. Here we point out where we are along the California Central Coast. So we have Los Angeles to the south of us and San Francisco to the north of us, each about 3.5 hours drive. This is the Paso Robles AVA in general. This is the mountain range that you were looking at, and this is the area that we just had a quick look at. And we'll probably be talking a little bit about, because the Adelaida district, of course, is where Tablas Creek is, further to the west, and a little bit more central in the district is where Daou is. And then if you go down into the Templeton kind of Gap district and the Willow Creek district, we have a couple of vineyards that Dusi owns, the historic one being here more in the center, and then I think the other Paper Street Vineyard is going to be over here in the Willow Creek district. So that being said, let's talk about what we're tasting today. These are the wines, Pinot Grigio and a Zinfandel from Dusi. We've got Sauvignon Blanc and Soul of a Lion from Daou, and the Esprit Blanc, and then the Esprit de Tablas from Tablas Creek. As we get further into our presentation, all three winemakers are going to take that opportunity to talk about their wines and what goes into it, and hopefully have a discussion with each other about what went into the making of those wines. So very quickly, Paso Robles means Paso the Oaks. You see a lot of oak trees all around Paso, especially in the mountainous areas, but they really are everywhere. We are about 40,000 planted acres. We are about 60 different or so varieties. We have a great diurnal temperature swing here where we get really warm during the day, but it's that relationship with the Pacific Ocean that allows us to cool off at night. It's this fog that kind of infiltrates the Estero Bay that's just to the west of the mountain range that brings in this cooling influence, but not too cool, but just enough to give us up to 50-degree Fahrenheit temperature changes. So it's a key element to what makes us unique as a wine region. We have very calcareous and siliceous soils here. that we'll be going over. I kind of just already described, but we are just about, our western edge is about 6 miles from the Pacific Ocean. Near the center of town, it would be about 15 miles, nautical miles that is, to the coast. There is a river that runs through Paso that helps to bisect the region in a sense, and it's oftentimes a delineator for what is west and what is east in the Paso Robles region. And so there's the west, and there's that fog kind of monster, if you will, that often has wind ahead of it, and that's what helps cool off so much of our region. And then these are the ranges to the east, the Chelam and the La Panza ranges, that help frame and think back on the Google Earth overview, and you probably saw that they help frame our region. We have a lot of different soils here, 30 different parent soil series. There are 4 main types though, calcareous being one of them, and I know we even have other images from our winemakers here that they're going to be probably focusing a little bit more on this, but here is kind of a base on what we're going to be talking about. Well, and this is another image that helps support the calcareous soil type that we have. On the right, you see a dry rock, and on the left, you see a wet rock. This stuff nearly doubles its weight, actually even 1.5 times its weight typically during the rainy season. That's when it soaks it in. And this is the stuff that's under our soil. This is just one of those examples that I think will help support some of what our winemakers are going to be talking about. Sandy loam is also another one of the great aspects of our region, a very kind of sticky type of soil, a little bit lower in pH, less drainage than say the calcareous stuff, but still a very important component of what is the Paso Robles region. Clay calcareous, of course, is almost like a combination. And then the siliceous soils that exist mostly in the southern portion of our AVA. The climate is what is most important, of course, is this relationship that we have with the Pacific Ocean. And it is to the west of us, and it is those cooling influences that help us have this temperature gradient that can be warm during the day and cold at night. So daytime can be as much as 85 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, nighttime 40 to 50. I'll let our winemakers talk a little bit about why that is unique, but I can give you a little preview. It's all about that acid retention, right? And our annual rainfall is very little. I'm not going to spend much time on this slide, but as you can see in inches, we do not get a lot of rain in the rainy season. This is a view of that Estero Bay, that Morro Bay that's within it that I was talking about, and that range in the background is what is between us and the Pacific Ocean. Like I said, we have about 60 different varieties grown in the region. And a great majority of it is Cabernet Sauvignon. So that actually concludes my first portion of this presentation. And now we're going to get into wine tasting, and we're going to go straight to Janell and talk a little bit about that first wine that we have, which is the Pinot Grigio. So Janell.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be starting you guys off. And as any wines, I guess, we start off a little bit light and crisp. So I'm bringing a Paso Robles Pinot Grigio to you. And I know that might sound a little interesting to be like, what? Pinot Grigio, Paso Robles? You guys are so hot. How does that happen? And I think it really attests to how much flavor we can get in a Paso Robles Pinot Grigio. There's not a lot planted, Pinot Grigio, and we have a small acreage over here on the west side of Paso. So it's technically in the Templeton Gap, but really, really close to the Willow Creek area. And we purchased this vineyard. It was planted with mostly Zinfandel Dusi cuttings, and there was this section of Pinot Grigio in the middle. And I was like, hey, I don't have a white in my lineup, and you know, it's crisp, it's fresh. Our Paso Robles summers are hot, hot, hot. So I tried it off, and it went off like a bang. And I started making it stainless steel, of course. So stainless steel, fermented and aged, and really comes off as just bright and crisp and fresh. I think on the nose, your mind goes a little bit floral and tropical, but on the palate, it's more on that dry sensation, but you do get some of those hints of taking your mind over here, and it's just kind of screams a nice summer wine that's a little over 12% alcohol that you can keep on sipping. So one of the major points that I love is that stainless steel, no secondary fermentation, so you have all that crisp, bright freshness just coming out at you.
I love the freshness, Janelle. The freshness is beautiful. The acidity cuts and is very focused. And I like that it's not a fruit bomb. I like the fact that it's layered and it's got that minerality that comes through the glass. Hats off. It's a beautiful Pinot Gris.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit for people what you mean by the term Templeton Gap? Because it's one of the sub-appellations, but that's a pretty interesting point that people outside of Paso Robles don't probably know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, the Templeton Gap is where I was born and raised, grew up, and both my wines that I'm showing you today are from the Templeton Gap AVA. So one of the 11 AVAs of Paso Robles. And Templeton Gap is, Templeton borders Paso Robles, but it kind of sits at the base of where the one highway called Highway 46 goes straight over the mountain, straight over the ocean through the mountain range. So like the mountains that Chris told you and showed you a picture earlier, Templeton and Paso Robles will get to 100, 105 daytime high. And the first section to cool off in this North County hot temperature zones is going to be the Templeton Gap region, because of the straight direct line from the ocean straight over down that Highway 46. You can see it going right through the purple and yellow. And so we call it Templeton Gap because it's the first one to cool off on our hot summer days. So that way we can get really, really hot during the day. And 3, 4 o'clock, we start getting those really windy breezes straight from the ocean, and it cools us down pretty quickly. So I think we're able to grow a white grape in this area, Paso Robles, but because of the heat, because of the sunshine here in Paso Robles, we're getting a little bit more layers and depth to a Pinot Gris that you don't get a lot of places. So it has taken off. I get more and more Pinot Grigio I can get every year, and just keep growing the program because it is just a refreshing, great start your evening kind of wine.
It's very pretty, very, very bright, very mineral, kind of linear acidity going to the limestone. You can feel it. It's really, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So
your brightness too. That's super cool. And it's a trip. I mean, 30 years ago, people would have not thought making a wine like this was possible in Paso Robles because everything was big and flabby and everyone thought it was just too hot because, as Chris said, you know, nobody appreciated the importance of those cool nights.
Yeah. Now, did you perform a cold fermentation on this?
Yes.
I could see that. You know, I love the aroma, and I love the fact that when you first pour it in the glass, within even 5 minutes, it just totally transforms itself, and the floral component starts coming out, you know, of the glass. But the first 5 minutes, it almost looks a little subdued. When did you bottle this wine?
This was bottled late early fall.
Okay, yeah, I love how it almost looks muted the first few minutes, but then, oh my gosh, 5 minutes later, just the floral bouquet comes out of the glass, and I love the acidity, very fresh.
Good, thank you. Yeah, it's hard to get a Pinot Grigio that's just not all acid, you know, some other components going on and keeping that going. One thing about Pinot Grigio that's interesting, I don't know if everyone listening is really into the grapes, but it is one of the only white varietals that turns purple on the vine. So that's another hurdle to get over, is to get these grapes off. They're really the smallest grapes bunches I've ever picked in my life. And to get them into the cellar, get them processed and going before it starts to collect some of the pinkness from the skin. So it's always a battle to do that, but it always ends up turning out really light. So
if you leave it a little longer, can you make a Pinot Grigio rosé? Is that a thing? Yeah,
somebody in town made one. Yeah, but it'll collect. It's light, but it looks purple on the vine. It's crazy.
Cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I would like to keep us going because we have 6 wines to discuss and enjoy and share with our audience. But next is the Daou Sauvignon Blanc, and so that's here in front of me and in my glass.
Hey, some people over for dinner tonight with all this leftover wine in front of me.
Exactly.
Are you hosting?
So I'll talk a little bit about our terroir. You know, we have a very, very unique terroir that, you know, there's so much misunderstanding about Paso Robles that, you know, I'm going to share some data and some statistics that will probably, you know, take you back because, you know, you hear all the time, Paso's too hot or you know, Paso's this or Paso's that. And one thing I learned about Paso is 614,000 acres. And, you know, sometimes the difference of a few miles can make such a huge difference. I'll share a little bit about our mountain. You know, we fondly call it Daou Mountain. We have a total of about 700 acres in the Aleta district, and we have about 230 acres that are either planted or in development right now from additional properties that we own. But Daou Mountain itself is actually, and contiguous to this mountain is basically the majority of the planting and the majority of the acreage, with a couple of other vineyards that are either 1 mile away or just a few miles as the crow flies down the street. What's so unique about this mountain, and Chris tried to highlight it a little bit, is that, we talk often, there's such a confusion over limestone and over, people sometimes attribute to the lighter the soil, the more rocky the soil, the better it is. Well, in reality, we found that to be the opposite for Bordeaux varieties, because as some varieties, like Rhône varieties, can handle some of the heat and can handle, some of the sun beating them really hard in the summer months. Bordeaux varieties tend to not do very well with that. They don't like, Bordeaux does not like, Bordeaux varieties, doesn't like varieties, temperature that get much higher than 100 degrees. So one of the things that, you will look at this picture that Chris is showing, it looks like clay on top. You would think it's clay. And let's not forget that Napa is mostly clay, and that Bordeaux is mostly clay with a limestone subsoil. As a matter of fact, the soil type that you will find mostly in France or in Europe, be it Tuscany or be it Austria or Germany or the Rhône Valley or Bordeaux or Burgundy, is argilo-calcaire in French, which is calcareous clay. So if you see, you can show the other picture. Yeah, that's a great picture, Chris, you're showing. Look at the top. If you're standing on top of the soil, you would never think that there's a rocky, porous limestone underneath that clay. And what we found on our mountain is that the first 18 inches to the first 3 feet in some blocks is pure clay. Now, clay is going to give you bouquet. It's going to give enough, it's going to give you fat. It's going to give you color. It's going to give you flesh. But clay is also going to give you the ability to have a full canopy, which is so important for Cabernet Sauvignon, because without a full canopy, you're going to get sunburn. So if you show the other picture, Chris, that shows the grapes, you'll see here, there's a very even, homogeneous canopy that actually we have to hedge sometimes, that's easily 4.5 feet tall. So that gives us continuous photosynthesis that is even across basically the entire vines. That is very important for Cabernet Sauvignon. It also protects it from sunburn. So let's talk about climate for a second, now that we've talked about soil. Because we're the highest elevation vineyard in Paso at 2,200 feet elevation, what you will find is that if you ask a pilot, they'll tell you for every 1,000 feet, you drop about 5 degrees. So we find that our highs during the day are the lowest we've seen in Paso, but yet the nights tend to be a little bit warmer, which is why the Templeton Gap, as Janell was describing, gets very cold around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, because that cold from the Templeton comes in and cools down the region. But the highs rarely get over 100 degrees. So let me give you a couple more statistics before we talk about the white wine. Last year, the number of days at 100 degrees or more, and it was a cooler vintage pretty much last year. Paso, the airport, saw 27 days at 100 degrees. Saint Helena Napa saw 11 days. Calistoga saw close to 20. Even Bordeaux, France, saw 4 days at 100 degrees or more last year. On our mountain last year, throughout the entire year, 365 days, there were 0 days that reached 100 degrees. So that gives you an idea of how well Bordeaux varieties are treated and excel with that soil and that climate working together. So the wine we're having, our Estate Sauvignon Blanc. This is a Sauvignon Blanc that actually has about 18% Semillon. These are two Bordeaux grapes, 2 white Bordeaux grapes. And while we make another Sauvignon Blanc, this is 100% from our estate, comes from blocks that are actually at the bottom of the vineyard, and they are 100% dry farm. The vast majority of our mountain is either dry farmed or deficit irrigated. And what I mean by deficit irrigated is usually in August, they'll get maybe 1 gallon of water for maybe 1 or 2 weeks just to give them enough moisture to get to harvest. So the intensity of this wine I love. It's aged, it's actually fermented in barrels, 50% new French oak, and the rest has been used either once or twice for only 7 months. So there's quite a bit of oak in this wine, but I don't think you feel the oak, but instead you see the complexity and the minerality and the bouquet that comes from basically those 2 varieties being fermented at very cold temperature in a 50-degree room in order for it to ferment very slowly and retain the aromatic component that I'm looking for.
Beautiful wine. It's excellent. It's crisp.
Yeah, the bouquet just comes right out, and I think the layers of the oak, you can see it in there, but it's not screaming and overpowering the wine by any means.
Thank you.
Not at all. And it's
Definitely.
also has a lot of tension and firmness to it.
You say 50%. It's really nice. But the cool ferment helps with that for sure, you know. And what about mallow? Is there mallow on this or no?
0 mallow. no mallow at all. The minute primary fermentation is done, we're done. We add a little bit of SO2 to stop the fermentation, and we just do batonnage for about 3 or 4 months on a weekly basis to create that voluptuousness and that creaminess and that complexity that we're looking for.
When do you bottle your Sauvignon?
We bottle in March usually. So we harvest usually end of August, early September, and bottle in March.
Super pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful wine. Neil.
Oh, that quick, huh?
Yeah. Well, we have 3 more wines after this.
Right. You know, my day's done, Chris. I'm not in a hurry here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going anywhere after this either.
So Tablas Creek, I mean, very similar story, but it was very interesting. If you look at the pictures that we just looked at from Daniel and how red that soil is, I think there's case in point. In a very short, I mean, if you're a crow, what are we, half a mile away maybe to Tablas Creek from Daou? Contrary to Daou, we're not on top of a mountain. We're more, hang on, you lost me there. We're more in a valley, in a basin, so we get incredibly cold at Tablas Creek, particularly in the winter and the spring months. We suffer from frost a lot, but we enjoy that. We enjoy the cold weather for the white grapes in particular. And I think Daniel's point and Janell's point is a great one. I mean, I literally had a day 2 weeks ago where it was 94 degrees and I was sending the vineyard crew home because it was too hot at about 1:30 in the afternoon. And I was looking at the temperature at another vineyard that we have over in Templeton, and it was 96 or 95. And less than 2 hours later, the temperature in that vineyard over on Ridge Road dropped from 95 to 74 in less than 2 hours. That's how dramatic that influx can be. So Tablas is there. They're there, as I alluded to earlier, to make wines that are expressions of the soil. So the wines that we taste, we farm 100% organically. Most of what we do is dry farmed. About 30% of what we do is absolutely dry farm with no irrigation in place, kind of like old school, like Janell's old family vineyards, wide spacing, planted with no irrigation. And that's all in a goal, with the goal of showing the terroir, showing what is beautiful about that 120 acres. Because even though it's close to these other guys' vineyards, particularly Daniel, it's a very, very different place. It's a very, very different soil, and the climate is a different variation, I think you'd say. So we do that. We farm organically. We're certified biodynamic. We just got certified ROC, which is a new certification, regenerative ag. Which is not yet released, but it'll be coming, and it's very, 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 very cool and progressive, I think. We run a lot of animals. We have 300 sheep that run the vineyard, trying to integrate different things into the vineyard monoculture, a lot of fruit trees planted. We get to the cellar and we try and follow that dream of making a wine that is an expression of place. So 100% with native yeast. We don't add any yeast. We never have since the winery was new. We use native mallows if we do mallow, and really mostly neutral wood. So you don't taste a lot of new wood on any of the wines. What we're tasting today is 2000 Esprit Blanc, is Roussanne, 68%, 17% Grenache Blanc, 7% Picpoul Blanc, 4 Clarets Blanche, and 4% Picardin. First Picardin to be grown in America, which is pretty cool. These guys are all fermented separately, blended at the blending table in the springtime, aged in 1,200-gallon foudre, which if Chris is on his game, he'd already have it on the screen, but he hasn't. That's a vineyard, Chris. And then we make the assemblage, and it goes to foudre, neutral foudre. There's the limestone, there's the foudre. So those are actually the red foudres, but they're identical. We age this in foudre through the next harvest, and then bottle in December or January, depending on how we feel for the wine. And again, the goal being an expression of these grapes, these varieties on these soils in that very specific place. You know, very different than what you'll find elsewhere. And that's what's unique about what we do. And that's the entire goal in my life, is to make wines that look like I wasn't even there.
It's a beautiful wine. It has so much going on in it, but it's still, I think you have a good, more of like a balance between the crispness and the depth of both of our wines we just tried, kind of, that I really enjoy.
We have the Roussan, which is in our zone, is a very big, it's kind of a rich, oily, viscous variety. But then the Picpoul and the Grenache Blanc in particular bring great acidity and the tannin of Grenache Blanc that gives that, elongates it and gives it that prettiness. And this is actually the first vintage since 2003, when Picpoul was a new guy, that we've changed the makeup, and the Claret Blanche, which you grow at Paper Street, I believe, and the Picardins, first year they've made it into the bottle, which is pretty cool. And that was done blind. You know, we do all our blending decisions completely blind. So I wanted that to happen, but it only happens if we choose it out of the lineup.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing when you have a blend. You can blend it to the way you want it to taste, and also be intriguing with a new varietal that people aren't quite. I mean, I'm Picardin. Yeah.
We made a couple of brand new ones to the United States this year too. We made a white Bourboulon, and we made a red Vaccarès, which is pretty cool. And then hopefully this year we'll make the last of the 13 varieties of Chateauneuf that I grafted over into the vineyard last year, and it's Muscadin. Muscadin was in quarantine for 13 years, you know, which is ridiculous because nobody really cares about Muscadin anyway.
I think you mentioned
I care.
Hey, you mentioned the quarantine thing. Fill us in on that. I think that's kind of an important little subject.
Yeah, well, Tablas Creek from the very inception, imported grapevines from France into our own nursery because they were varieties that were not available here, or clonal selections that we wanted were not available here. In the early days of quarantine, they went to New York, and it was a 3-year deal. And if they're a virus, they incinerated them. If they didn't, we got them. But we did a second wave, I think, in 2004, of which the Vaccarès and the Bourboulon, the Picardin, Terre Noire, et cetera, the new ones. And this time we didn't do that. We actually gave the plants to Dave. We paid the importation, and they do micro shoot tip propagation. So a vine can outgrow its virus. So they grow it in the greenhouse. As soon as it shoots a tip, they cut the tip, they propagate that, and they keep going. And Muscadin just kept going. And the virus.
Yeah, I like this wine quite a bit. I think it's probably one of my favorite wines you guys make. What I really love about what you do is you don't try to follow trends. I would never think this wine is from California if you had me taste it in France. It has beautiful character, a great, like a little bit of austerity, you know, the character, which is very typical to the Rhone wines from France. It's not a fruit bomb. It has a lot of class. So bravo, really very well done. I like this wine.
Yeah, merci. Yeah, it's the other thing which I think is astounding that people would not have thought not so long ago is these white wines age incredibly well. We're drinking the wines, the Esprits from the early 2000s, and they're just showing so well. The 2003 right now is probably the best one for me. It's my current favorite.
Wow.
So that, again, that's something. I was in the local business a little bit before Tablas Creek came to town, not much, but a little bit. But saw that, you know, we weren't known for white wines, and neither of the previous two wines that we tasted today would have been thought possible in Paso Robles back then. You know, people would have, because it was all big fat Chardonnays that were, not carrying great acidity. So I think that's a possibility for us. It's nice for hot. We wouldn't be making those Sauvignon Blancs and those Pinot Grigio, or some of these. That's case in point on our climate.
So let's keep moving.
Right, ready to go to reds?
Yeah, let's go to reds. So Janell, how about let's go Zinfandel first, shall we?
Okay, absolutely. I think with the Zin, we can go back to that Tumbleton Gap thing. And I know people are used to Zins being really big and ripe and over the top and just fruit bombs that I think here in Paso Robles, we can control that a little bit more, and we can kind of focus it in because of that Templeton Gap again and that diurnal temperature swing. But I can't say enough how important it is that Paso Robles Zins in this area can be dry farmed all summer long, 100-degree days, and not have a drop of water, so that they really, really stress out. They kind of almost shut down during the end of the day, but they cool down once our Templeton Gap breeze comes through. And our 50-degree, 55-degree nights really lets them, you know, rejuvenate, recover, and get ready for the next day of summer with no irrigation to them. And if that really just concentrates the fruit, Zinfandel is such a unique grape and very uneven ripening per area, per vine, and per cluster even, which is so unique and different. But that really makes up the characteristics of Zinfandel. And when I point back to the weather pattern, is that Zinfandel and Paso Robles and Templeton Gap is so different because I think we really can get a balance of fruit and spice in our wines, where you get up to the Lodi and the regions north and east of us that get hot and they stay hot at night. And all of those zins are just big and ripe and plummy and almost raisiny. And I think that we stay away from that a little bit here in Paso Robles. And Zinfandel is definitely a varietal I try to pick really lean because it's gonna soak up in the vineyard. Once you get into the cellar, it's gonna soak up a couple Brix levels of sugar because there's always a couple raisins on each cluster, which can make it a difficult grape. Here's a cluster here that I'm holding, and this is a classic Zinfandel cluster with the long side on the right and a little shoulder on the left, and it is uneven. Probably if we zoomed in on that, and you could see the uneven ripening per cluster, but that definitely makes the uniqueness of Zin. So like Neil, I think I really try to show what the vineyard's saying that year. This is a vintage Zinfandel from the Dusi Vineyard. So naming the vineyard it's from is showing what happened in that vineyard that year. Was there too much rain, not enough rain, too much wind during the bloom, and or too much heat, or a cool summer? All those things come out in the bottle when you have a vintage vineyard designated wine, and that's what I think is so cool about this. But as far as Zin goes, I really try to keep it a little more restrained, a little bit more medium bodied, so not that big fruit bomb, but there's definitely a lot of fruit up front in this 18 Zin, and more so than past vintages recently. There's a lot of fruit in the 18, but I think it still sneaks up on you on the finish palate, a little bit of spice there that is definitely classic Zinfandel as well.
I like that, Janelle. I get a hint of caramel. What kind of oak do you use?
Yeah, I kind of do too. I try to keep the barrel regime really light, so I only do about 15% new oak, mostly French with a little bit of American.
Okay, I really like what you've done with the Zin, and I'll tell you, because I taste so many Zins, as you described so well, the bunches of the Zin are so tight that many times people end up harvesting it way too late, and you end up with raisins that open up at fermentation when you get to zero breaks, and then you end up with a stuck fermentation with 4 grams of sugar, which you've totally departed from. I love how you still get the spice, you still get the layers, you still get the beautiful aroma. So again, you're making very balanced wine. I'm really liking this. Bravo.
Thanks. Yeah, Zinfandel in the industry is always seen as the difficult grape because of the uneven and soaking up and high, it can get out of hand easily, but try to keep it in check.
Of course, I don't make any Tablas, but I do make a couple of Zins under my family's Madrone labels. And I strive for the same thing. I mean, trying to pick them soon, I'm scared I picked them too early, but I just really get this bright fruit on the pruny stuff. And it's really a very challenging grape, as you said. I mean, I think everyone that's dealt with it knows it, the raisin cluster, and just trying to figure out that pick time.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that is important that the people like yourself are taking on, because Zinfandel's our heritage. I mean, that's where we started, and your 4 generations. I mean, make some pretty good wines in his time, but his grandkids make the best wines off that property when those vines are old. That's kind of the beauty of our business, is you get to reap the benefits of what your ancestors did, which is so cool. And that's an exciting thing for me. My kids are gonna have to go work for Tablas Creek.
Yeah. I mean, when you start your kids drinking Zinfandel at a young age in a little juice glass, it's like it's in us. So you gotta keep it going on. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to
dry
make it into the Martinelli Vineyard a couple of years, and that was a treat.
Yes. Yeah. Old vines in, and fortunately, that so many of these old vineyards that were first in Paso Robles are still there, even if they might be owned by somebody else. But it's important.
And they're dry farmed. So this is one thing I want to point to the audience here is that you got 3 wineries here that for the most part dry farm their grapes. Something incidentally that UC Davis not too long ago came out and said it's impossible to 100% dry farm in California. But these soils that we have, as Chris showed in his presentation, allow the moisture to be retained and feed the vine enough moisture to survive on its own, which is very, very unique in California.
Yeah, I mean, you need to, it's always funny to show those professors the Uberoff vineyard, 1886 or whenever that was planted, well, there it is, it's going to be done. And we're all doing other things, and I was certainly inspired at Tablas Creek to start just planting all their own dry farm because I could see the Zins could do it. So, hey, Grenache, I love it, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
beautiful wine.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Cheers. Actually, we haven't even had a toast yet. Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. So now that we've moved on to red, but cheers. Appreciate you being here with us.
Chin
chin. Chin.
Cheers.
Mm.
It was a bit late there, but cheers anyway.
I would love to showcase this wine next, please. And the Esprit de Tablas from Tablas Creek.
Okay, so a blend of 40% Mourvèdre, 35% Grenache Noir, 20% Syrah, and 5% Counoise, which, the Esprit is always led by Mourvèdre and finished by Counoise. For now, now we have Terre Noire, Vaccarès, and the great Muscadin. Maybe that changes in the future, who knows? Same story. I mean, a lot of dry farm stuff. I mean, most of the vineyard isn't irrigated. We don't have enough water to irrigate very much, even if we so desired. But trying to make wines in the sense of the place, and driven by Mourvèdre, which of course was the champion of our parent company, Chef de Beaustel, and their grandfathers. And those aren't mine, but they are dry farm. So we followed in that suit. The Syrah Grenache are the ones that move in the middle of this blend. So depending on some years, Grenache is showing so well lead. And even Grenache may not be up for the task, then Syrah can step in and take the workload there. And then Counoise traditionally always comes in at the end, and it's kind of the icing, the round. It just calms down the bulliness of the Mourvèdre and the Syrah, I think, and takes down the flamboyantness of the Grenache a notch, and just really finishes the wine well. And I always kind of feel like in a year where the Counoise is, then the Esprit is going to be great. That just seems to be how it falls. Pictures of, I don't know where that is. I know it's at Tablas Creek, but it's pretty much what our soil looks like. That's a piece of limestone or calcium carbonate, however you want to call it. And you can see how the roots can work through layers of that. When we were excavating some of this, there were roots from the grass that were growing that were like lace in between the layers. You can see one root coming down through right in the middle of that picture. It's pretty cool. The roots can break their way through. Not all property varies immensely. If you look at the very top, you can see again kind of what Daniel was talking about. There's a little bit of topsoil up there still, which gives us those grapes that great start, and the top is really beneficial to them. But that's why we're there. That's the people that own Tablas Creek, the Perrin family from both limestone, and that was it. That was the selling points. That's our reason for being. And two wines are, Tablas Creek, when they began, we're going to make a red and a white, and this would have been those two wines. And we've gotten doing a bit more than that. We do 31 different things, but
I love that it's Mourvèdre heavy and just kind of comes out, and all that realness and all that just terroir just coming on the nose, and then the palate just kind of soft, and it's really, really pretty, nice red wine.
Mourvèdre's a cool for
Well,
terroir.
here again, Neil, I would have never guessed that this is a California wine. Totally different profile. Remind me of a Rhone blend from the Rhone region. I love the feminine aspect of it. It's just floral. It's just beautiful. I really like it, man. It just really chapeau. Really beautiful. I like it. And I have to tell you, I'll be first to confess, mea culpa. I'm not a great Rhone guy. I mean, that's not really the variety that gets me excited. But this wine is great.
Appreciate it.
Well, I think it's the Mourvedre in it, and if some of our audience isn't necessarily familiar, but that the Mourvedre maybe even with the strong tannin kind of structure that it adds to this wine is so maybe even that Cabernet lovers kind of Rhone variety, or their kind of entryway into seeing some Rhones. Daniel, you've been around the world and you've seen and tasted a lot of different wines, but if we could tell our audience out there, man, if you're absolutely loving Cabernet Sauvignon and you want to find something over in the Rhone side of things, Mourvedre is your guy. Go check that out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the one thing we really like is that the diversity of Paso, and a lot of people do come to buy our Cabernet Sauvignon, but they discover that Paso has other great wines. I mean, Tablas Creek is a good example of that, and Janell's wines are as well. And that's the beauty about Paso, is you're not limited to one variety. Many people grow great varieties and make great wines.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to be in a region where you can see even the diversity of what we're tasting today. But I mean, let's go even further. Tablas Creek and Vermentino to Cabernet Sauvignon within less than a mile of each other, and they're both very successful. It speaks of the region and it's how great it is and diverse it is. We can grow. There's Pinot Noir in very, very small pockets, I think, that are actually at the foot of Daniel's property, the old Hoffman planting. It may not be Burgundy, but it's certainly a really cool bottle of wine that's coming off that land. And that was, for me, that was the guy. Stanley Hoffman was the first guy that came to town because of what it was, I think, and the soil it was. And that's the man that, he gets lost a little bit maybe, but he's the guy that saw the soils and the climate. This was going to be a great spot. A lot of other people came and they were looking for a great place to live and bringing their Zinfandel from Italy and sticking it in the ground. But he's the one that came and went, yeah, this is something special. Yeah, I'm going to lose my fortune.
You're so right. So many times I stand at the winery that he built, which we renovated on our property. And I think to myself, I thought I was courageous, but I'm not as courageous as Dr. Hoffman. I mean, imagine back in 1961, coming up from Beverly Hills and deciding to plant the flag in Paso and hiring Andrei Chelichev. That takes guts, and God rest his soul. He was a great man.
I have somewhere in the back of my shed, I have a IV bottle that I vineyard from when I was working at Adelaide, and he used to bring IV bottles to put nutrients in.
I had the pleasure to have dinner with him about 7 years ago.
Yeah,
he bought a bottle of 1975 Cabernet Sauvignon HMR, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
40 years later.
He was a really special guy. He's pretty humble for what he did, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Wow.
Chris, I think we need to do more about Dr. Hoffman. Like, why not have a statue of him in town? I mean,
you can have me. He's the young hero of big names, but he gets lost to me in the translation. Like I say, before you, before me, before Justin, before Gary Everly, he came kind of looking for limestone. What can you say?
Yeah.
It was best, but talking about being way ahead of your time, When I was working at Wild Horse in 1991, they were selling Pinot Noir off of HMR Vineyard to a juice facility for $50 a ton. Can you think about that, right?
Wow.
Yeah, Ken Volk got it and brought it back in, which is good for Ken.
Well, here's to Doc, and also
Cheers.
So cheers, Doc. Let's move on to our last wine, if we could. Daniel and the Soul of a Lion. I love the story on this wine, by the way. This wine is so Father's Day, by the way. But
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah.
So this was called in honor of our dad.
And my kids up there.
Yeah, passed away 10 years ago. You know, we wrote a book in the family that was called Soul of a Lion, and it told his life story that hopefully for future generations to know. That is the flagship wine of our mountain. And you know, every one of the wineries here today has really had an impact into adding a dimension to Paso. Clearly, with the Dusi family, the Zinfandel has been such a you know, signature of Paso. And obviously with Tablas Creek bringing in the Rhone varieties to Paso, you know, and not that we're the first ones to bring Cabernet Sauvignon, but this wine has really added a whole different dimensions to Paso Robles in the last 10 years and has been regarded by every critic out there as a wine that's rivaling the best of Napa and best of Bordeaux, really elevating Paso to a whole other dimension. So we're pretty proud of it. A lot has gone into making this wine. This is not an easy wine to make. So I'll run you a little bit through what it took to unlock the potential of our terroir into making this wine. First of all, I want to tell you that one way to objectively measure a wine, especially a Bordeaux wine, a Cabernet wine, is to look at phenolics. Phenolics is what you see, what you smell, what you taste. And this wine, after 600 measurements from Bordeaux grapes or Cabernet Sauvignon from all over the world, this on a every year basis is on the top. It is dark, it's intense, but yet it is elegant and it is so age-worthy. The oldest one being 10 years old, and it's barely coming out of its infancy. This wine has decades to go. The wine is always aged in 100% new French oak. I used 15 different cooperages to make this wine. 3 of them were created exclusively just for us, and 1 actually created myself, which makes up about 1/3 of the actual blend. It's a special barrel I make out of Bois Rosé, Pinkwood, and Bordeaux that's aged for 5 years in the elements, so quite a bit of a long time. The yeast that is fermented for this wine is a yeast that we've identified and isolated out of our native yeast, and it's a native yeast from our vineyard. For 5 years to actually search it and find it. The yeast is called Daou Mountain D20, and the company that helped us develop it and find it actually has asked us to be able to sell it all over the world. So the yeast from Daou Mountain is sold in 35 countries today, from Russia to South Africa to Moldova to Portugal. We get emails weekly about this yeast. It is so unique in the fact that how it stabilizes color, how it can actually tolerate higher alcohol, and at the same time, fermentation up to 104 degrees. And it is a native yeast that was isolated from our mountain. You know, how do we make this wine? You've heard to say that great wines are made in the vineyard, especially when it comes to Cabernet Sauvignon. You know, it's all about vine balance. Having vine balance is extremely important. So our vineyards are planted up to 3,630 vines per acre. Why do we do that? To reduce the number of clusters per vine, so that at the end of the day, we have a homogeneous ripening at harvest, so there are no averaging of flavor. So, you know, it does cost us about 5 to 6 times more to plant an acre, and it costs us 5 to 6 times more to manage an acre, and we still get the same yields, but the results are really fantastic in terms of flavors, and in terms of complexity, and in terms of color extraction and tannin extraction. So this wine, even the mold was created in Italy just for the glass, and the cork, every cork is actually checked and insured, so you cannot actually have a cork bottle. So the biggest attention to details has gone into making our flagship wine. You know, we make it every year, besides 1 year in 2011, which we felt that the quality was not there. You know, it's a way for us to really show our commitment to producing a collectible Cabernet Sauvignon from Paso Robles.
Excellent. I love what you just said, by the way, about Daou yeast. And I remember you touching a little bit on that once in a conversation not long ago. And then I think about it and I equate it to the Tablas TCV clone. And now how the Tablas, by propagating Rhone varieties here in Paso, has now helped many other New World regions be able to have these clones, basically these TCV or Tablas Creek Vineyard clones, like Cunoise and Cinsault and so many other of the Rhone varieties that weren't readily available. And I love how Dusi and Dusi fruit is some of the most sought after fruit in our region, truly. Your family and the history that you have, people are knocking on your door a lot, not just here, but we're talking all over, I know, to try to get a little piece of the Dusi fruit to be able to maybe even do a vineyard designate. Your guys' contributions have been absolutely amazing to our overall region. We are getting up on 5 o'clock is where I'm going with this. I don't want to cut us short in enjoying Daniel's wine, and I do encourage us to talk a little bit about it. I just want to tell our audience, we're going to go a little long. Stick with us if you'd like, but this wine is incredible, and I really want to encourage Janell and Neil to chat a little bit more about this wine as we've been doing as we talk about each other's wines.
Yeah, I don't know the last time I had this, but if I've had it, it was a long time ago. I love the great balance of softness. I mean, there's a real velvety softness to it, yet there's still that great backbone of Cabernet Sauvignon structure, which is integrated very well, but you can feel it's in there, and you can feel it will carry this wine for a long period of time. I'm intrigued by the yeast story, of course. I mean, I isolated one of Tablas Creek's natives many years ago. It's in storage under the name of Zadok, which was Robert Haas's middle name, and I've never actually used it. I have it there for emergencies, which I'm not sure what emergency I'm waiting for, but there it is. But I think it's a beautiful wine, super softness. It's not overbearing with oak, which I don't like in some Cabernets. I think it's as always, with what we do, I think the key is so often just balance of all things, and I think it achieves that.
Thank you, Neil. One of the ways I accomplish that is all of our estate wines. Well, first of all, what I love about our mountain is that you can make natural wines. All of our estate wines are simply made with our native yeast and some nutrition for the yeast. There is nothing added, no sugar, no acid, no color, no nothing added. So I love that because it really brings the balance from the vineyard into the glass as a purest expression. But the other thing too is 100% of all our estate wines are free run. So there is no pressing whatsoever. And not because I'm just trying to show off. The reason we don't press is those wines are such high in phenolics that the press lots are just undrinkable. So they serve as a great backbone for our inexpensive Discovery Cabernet. It actually lifts it up and gives us some tannin structure and color. So we average about 80 gallons per ton on this wine.
Which people should know that probably the average is 150 to 170 gallons per ton. That I would say is depending on the variety. Zinfandel a little more, I would guess, but.
So where do you put the press juice?
That's what I just said. The pressed juice, if it's deemed acceptable, we have a $20 Cabernet that's fantastic, and actually we put it in there. It really adds color and tannin structure to it, which is great.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think it's a beautiful wine, and I think we're getting back to what Paso is so known for, and the bigness, but done very well. But you're getting more expression, more bigness. But I also think that it has, like you were talking about the elevation earlier, we have Paper Street that's high elevation, and just the color that comes from the moment it sets down on the crush pad, and you can see it in the Soul of the Lion. The color is just intense and big and huge, and the wine is big, but it's very soft and pretty at the same time. And that's always something hard to come to fruition for sure, but it's done really well. And I think that the elevation that you do have there, you can just see it in the glass and taste it, and that has a big part of this wine, I think, as well.
Thank you.
I think intrigue is always an important part of, for me, the wines that I find great are ones that aren't obvious, like, oh, it tastes like tobacco and raspberries or whatever it might be. It's when there is none of that. It's just the balance and the integration is such that there's no obvious outstanding one given aroma or flavor. It's just you keep going back because you're intrigued to what you're going to find. There's a bit of game and a bit of meat involved in here, and there's fruit, but it's not one thing. There's no overriding dominance in this, which I think is cool. And oak being one of those things which people are very good at ruining their wine with.
Well, keep in mind that this is aged in 100% new French oak every year. 100%.
Yeah. Oak's a weird thing, and great varieties that handle oak. I mean, Nebbiolo is my thing that taught me that lesson. Is Nebbiolo is a very pale variety, but oak can't get anywhere near it because of its structure. It's great. You can put it in whatever barrel you want, and it just holds oak away, which is cool. The fun things you learn.
Well, we are a little over 5 o'clock, and I want to thank everybody that has joined us today to stay on a little longer with us. I want to thank Wine Origins Alliance for promoting this for the Taste-A-Thon today. It was a lot of fun to be a part of. It was great to have these three great personalities of our region who are just so knowledgeable about our region in general, but then also, of course, being able to share their wines in such an articulate way. Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you, Janell. Thank you, Daniel. I want to give you guys a quick second here. You got something coming up? Do you have your own virtual tastings happening? We just reopened. The region is open again, so you do have to call for an appointment. Everybody has some interesting protocols that they have to abide by, of course, but we are open. But anyway, Neil, you want to start first? I'll give you a second to talk. You have a tasting in the Westie and stuff like that.
I do. I have a lot of stuff. Yeah. So tomorrow is tasting in the Westie with Jordan at 6 o'clock, and we're tasting 2 Chenin Blancs from a vineyard in Paso Robles planted on Peachy Canyon in the 69, 70. We're tasting the Pet Nat and a dry Chenin from that vineyard. And this is kind of weird, but the following night, I'm doing a Tablas Creek virtual tasting with my son Jordan from Loma Drone, who's starting to make the wines for me. So that's going to be kind of entertaining, to say the least, me interviewing my son about our family winery. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm going to put his feet to the fire a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Where do we find out more information? TablasCreek.com or?
Yeah, Tablas Creek, Loma Drone, both of them. You know,
Okay.
Usual places. You go to the website or Facebook, you'll see it advertised. And the tasting in the Westie is just a very good fun way for us to get out, go to different beautiful places. We just filmed the latest edition up on Cuesta Ridge, out overlooking the Seven Sisters, and it was ridiculous because there was a fire and we had the bombers flying at eye level past us between us and Morro Rock. It was insane. Beautiful area.
That was cool. You texted me a picture. I was like,
hey,
that's so awesome. Yeah, right on. All right, thanks, Neil. Janell, what do you got going on?
We're open again. So after being lonely here for 3 months, just shipping packages, I'm excited to greet the customers of the public again. And we're open daily starting as of last Friday. So we're excited to have everybody with a couple music things, but we're reservation now and 6 groups of 6 or less. So come on by. We're right here on the 46 West, right in the heart of Paso Robles.
Right on. Yeah, I popped in on Friday and you had some people, socially distanced and spaced out. It looked great. It looked like people were having a great time.
Beautiful for the next 10 days. So it's like outside tastings or like overlooking the vineyards. How could you, that's what we want. That's what you want in life. So it's perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Right on. Thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of this. Daniel, you are a busy man.
We have been open and, we have received so much love in this, difficult situation with COVID. I can't tell you how many people reach out to us and, thank us for sending them wine and for being open and for making our wines available. And there has been so much support that we have been humbled by really all the love and support we've received. So we're open. Our team is busy. Of course, we're following all the, guidelines by the governor in terms of social distancing and in terms of, capacity and all of the above, no different than I'm sure Neil and Janell. So, we have to learn how to survive in this new world. And, we've learned very quickly in terms of e-commerce, our company, my brother's done a lot of work to really, years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, really push the winery into really having a platform for mobile and a platform for e-commerce. And it came in very handy because we have an incredible team working on that. And when COVID hit, we were ready. We were ready to actually really use our platform to get our wines out there and promote it. And, we fared well. I can't complain. I mean, obviously not as good as we had anticipated, but COVID-19 definitely put a little bit of a ding into it. But, we're here and, production is up and running. We haven't stopped working, managing the vineyards, bottling. We're getting ready for harvest here in a couple months. So we even planted a new vineyard. We planted about 25 acres and planning the next phase, another 40 acres next year.
Awesome.
I think that's a really valid point. As a real share. Thank you to all consumers. The incredible support that when we all had to close down our retail sales. I mean, I know Tablas Creek and Lomondron both, our support from our consumers was just insane. We could not have imagined how well we would have stayed afloat. And I thank them very much.
Yeah, thank you, Neil, for saying that. And just in case people missed that one, I thought it was because he did blip a little bit there, but I think it is important to say thank you, everybody who have supported the Paso Robles region throughout this time that we were closed, by ordering our wines and by staying engaged with all of our wineries and with us. This is, of course, for all of you who are new and watching, this is a normal series that we do now on Thursdays at 3 p.m. You can see the next show that will be posted actually later today for next week. Later on pasowine.com. It's also down here on my screen, but do visit pasowine.com to get updated. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us as we went a little long today. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate your time today. And thank you, Wine Origins Alliance, for making this possible and marketing this, and for all the work that you do. So thank you. Cheers.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.